On today's episode of Phinside The NFL, we are joined by A to Z Sports CFB, that's college football people, and draft analyst Ryan Roberts. We are going to deep dive into what should be the best strategy for the Miami Dolphins in the 2025 NFL draft. We got a lot to talk about. I'm going to ask him his thoughts on Colston Loveland or Tyler Warren because tight end's been a hot topic for Dolphin fans. We're going to talk about the defensive line. Maybe I'll ask him a little bit of about the quarterback class, even though I know he's sick of it. So we got a lot to talk about. It's a show all about the Dolphins and the draft. So smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. We are on our way to 20K. And let's get into this.
Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field down the near side, man open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown. He's in. Touchdown!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. And we are back here for another one. I am joined by my buddy Ryan Roberts. And this is like the fourth or fifth annual year we've done this. This is like 4 or 5 years in a row. I think it's 5, actually. We're back, and we are going to go into depth about the Dolphins and the draft. But before we get into that, just a scheduling reminder, I will be live tonight at 7 p.m. on Dudley Durong's channel. We'll be debuting our new podcast. Make sure you check that out. I'll be live tomorrow with my cornerback big board around 1 p.m., 2 p.m. Eastern time. Check that out. And then Monday, 10 a.m., I will be live with Jordan Reed from ESPN to discuss more draft. So, Ryan, you thought I was going to ask you about Tua and the quarterback class. I'm going to ask you this. Did you watch the combine and did you see Bhayshul Tuten run and say to yourself, oh my God, Mike McDaniel's probably in love with this guy?
I mean, I did it last year with Jalen Wright, so I mean, like it definitely runs through your mind a little bit. I mean, doesn't it? I mean, anytime you see one of those, I mean, like I'll say it like this: my thought was that's a Shanahan tree guy, right? Like it's a McVay tree guy, like whatever, any team that wants to run outside zone, yes. The minute he ran 4-3 something, you're like, that's who that is, right? So yeah, fits the.
Hey man, if he cleans up that fumbleitis, that he could be a very productive back at the next level, I think.
Yeah. Ball security is definitely an issue. Obviously, he's a little bit thin framed on the, he's a little bit thin framed as far as like leg drive and all that type of stuff. So like you're not drafting him to be a bell cow chain type of guy, but like as a Devin A chain type of player, right? That can be a part of a committee and can create explosive plays. Like, yeah, he makes a lot of sense for sure.
All right. So I wanted to ask you, safety is a big thing with the Miami Dolphins right now. It's not looking good. They got Patrick McMorris and Elijah Campbell there, and then they've signed Ashton Davis and Ifeatu Melifonwu. Neither one of those can stay healthy, especially Melifonwu. They just brought in Kevin Winston Jr. on a top 30 visit. What are your thoughts on the safety class? There's been a lot of talk about the Dolphin fan base. Malachi Starks at 13. Obviously, a lot of Dolphin fans. Nick Manawari came on to their radar at the combine, right, with his testing. I do think 13 is a little rich. Let's be honest here. What are your thoughts on the safety class, and what are your thoughts on what the Dolphins should target at safety? They got 13, 48, and 98. I think this is kind of a top-heavy safety class, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on the safety class and the Dolphins with the safety class?
I think safety is quietly a very good class overall. I mean, the corner group is especially deep, but I think the
Mhm.
safety group is a good group overall. I mean, you mentioned a couple of the guys at the top. Obviously, Malachi Starks from Georgia has been a kind of a volatile player, I guess, in this class a little bit. Like some people think he's a top 10 player. Some people think that he should be a borderline first rounder. And there's like there's not a ton of in between really. I mean, I think I'm definitely more the former than the latter on that one. Like I'm still a big fan of Malachi Starks, but you mentioned Eman Warrior. It really depends on what flavor the Dolphins want at safety. Like obviously I know they said goodbye to Javon Holland this offseason, but like do you want a guy that can play single, middle of the fields and be able to play like a true free safety role with some single high stuff? Do you want a guy that's more of a two high coverage dude? Do you want a guy that can come down on the second level in the box and the slot? I mean, there's a lot of different types. I mean, because when you even just compare those top two, Starks is much more, even though last year at Georgia they asked him to play a lot more in the slot, he's much more can rotate the single high, makes a lot of plays from depth, really clean transitional quickness, like really good coverage upside, especially working from depth. Eman Warrior's just like 6'3 and an eighth, 220-pound freak show, explosive type of guy, right? Like he's a very unique dude, but he's much better coming towards the line of scrimmage than working from depth. So it really depends on what the Dolphins want in their safety for like the next step of just kind of the reconfiguring of the safety room just overall. But I think it's a good safety class, and I saw some people in the chat weren't too keen on Starks at 13, but like if they took Malachi Starks at 13, I think that's a pretty dang good pick in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you know what? You know how we have draft exhaustion? I think it happens in fan
Yes.
bases, and I think like Holland was draft exhaustion right after Minka Fitzpatrick. You know, like we've had a couple great safeties drafted in the Greer regime that just haven't worked out. Now I see this is what I tell people, but this is where I could put a man. This is how I separate it for Starks to the everyday casual fan. To me, Starks is a better football player right now. Manowari is a better athlete. I mean, that's now. Obviously, you can get much deeper into it. Like clearly, Malachi Starks is far more instinctual right now. Like I notice a Manowari take more bite or take more false steps and get caught a little bit more ready to trigger instead of being patient when he needs to be. Whereas Malachi Starks he has that patience you want to his game. What do you think about like Andrew Makuba? What do you think about your boy? Hey, you're a Notre Dame fan, Xavier Watts,
Yeah.
Kevin Winston, a guy I actually kind of like later is Hunter Wohler a little bit. What do you think as we get past those top two?
Yeah. So Andrew Makuba, I liked at Clemson. I actually recommended him to an agent when he was a sophomore at Clemson. So like his first year as a full-time starter. He played a lot as a freshman, but it was his first year as a full-time starter. He was really smooth at Clemson, right? Like he had pretty good range in the back end, but he was a completely different player at Texas this year. Like he was a good player at Clemson. He was a really good player this year for Texas. And the physicality was just different. Like he wasn't super physical when he was at Clemson. He was more of just like smooth moving coverage safety. Like that's what he was. But when Texas, he was playing with some bad intentions, man. He had some knockout blows for that defense. So I think he's a good all-around safety in this class. He might not be quite as dynamic as a couple other players in terms of like pure coverage upside, but the kid does a little bit of everything really well. Xavier Watts is the smartest safety in this class. He's got the best instincts by a landslide, in my opinion, and he's got incredible ball skills. He's got 13 interceptions the last 2 years. He was actually started his Notre Dame career as a wide receiver, so that's where those ball skills come from, and he's really good at anticipating passing windows and closing down quick. But he doesn't have great range. He's more of like too high, sneak him down into robber coverage, can rotate the middle of the field at times, but like that's not his biggest thing. He's a too high robber. Like he will jump passing windows and make big plays in that. He's just always in the right spot overall. Kevin Winston's like the most fascinating player in this class because we only got one game of him this year, and it was part of a game because he got injured, obviously. But he is not as instinctual in the pass. I think he's a little bit of tight-hipped compared to some other dudes, but he's the best open field tackler in this class. Like, the dude just doesn't miss tackles, right? So if you want a guy that's going to play too high, rotate down, cover in the slot at times, bigger body types in the slot, and make tackles in space, like that's Kevin Winston Jr. So the depth is good, man. I think that who safety 3 is a little bit up for debate right now. Obviously, Winston's dealing with the medicals. I would bet right now that Xavier Watts ends up being the third safety off the board just because he's cleaner than the other couple guys, a little bit more consistent the last 2 years, and he doesn't have medicals in his background. But either way, I think that day 2 is pretty interesting for a couple of those safeties. I knew you'd be a Hunter Waller fan. I don't know why I knew that, but I just knew you would be a Hunter Waller fan. I have no idea why. A big safety, physical. He played a lot in the slot for Wisconsin as well, so he's got some tight end eraser type of feel to him as well, and he'll play a lot of good special teams. And on day 3 of the draft, that's really what all you're asking for is a guy that can come in and help on special teams and develop in the room.
Yeah. And I mean, man, we need bodies, when I'm excited to see Patrick McMorris's upside because everyone else might be hurt. That's scary heading into a season. Let me tell you that.
How did McMorris look this year, man? I remember talking about him a little bit last year, and I actually liked McMorris a little bit, but
his preseason was phenomenal, and then he got hurt.
Oh,
and they basically they didn't really massage him into the lineup the way we want to see, but he was one of the bright spots of the preseason in terms of rookies. It looked like, oh my God, we might got something here. And then as I dug into it, I heard it was our scouting department was really, really, really banging the table for us to take Patrick McMorris. They were pounding it for him. So yeah, I don't know.
He had the weirdest career ever. He was really good.
He looked like the guy That's who he looked like.
Yeah.
That's who he looked like, the guy from 2 years prior that you wanted to see at San Diego State. He looked like that guy in the preseason.
I had after that year I had a top 150 grade on him, so top 150 pick. And then his next year at San Diego State, his last year at San Diego State was just not good. It was just bad. He just missed so many tackles. Yeah. But then he was better at Cal the year after that. He was quite as good as the second.
Yeah,
he was
okay. Yeah, he was okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So hey, man, but he did look like the guy from 2 years prior to getting drafted. That was what was the most positive, because Patrick McMorris was what you said. He's one of those tricky evaluations where I didn't watch very much of him before the draft, and after you have to he's one of those guys where you got to go back. You know what I mean? You had to find out the why of why they loved him and what they drafted him on, et cetera, et cetera. Sticking with defense, the Dolphins, brother, it's not good next to Zach Sieler right now. Calais Campbell has said, "Yo, I'm going back to Arizona. Give me the bag." Right now, next to Zach Sieler, they got Benito Jones, Neil Farrell, and Matt Dickerson. That is what they have at defensive tackle. Now, the scheduled 30 visits we know of have been Shamar Turner as well as Alfred Collins. What are your thoughts on the defensive tackle class? I am a Grant guy. I'm a Kenneth Grant guy. I think the upside is absolutely ridiculous with that kid. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this class? Because there's even a debate going on right now in the Dolphins community about Walter Nolan or Kenneth Grant, et cetera, et cetera. What are your, because Ryan, it frustrates me. Some people are actually trying to hey, listen, I know you can project, I know you can see players in their future here a little bit. People are trying to pigeonhole Kenneth Grant as he's going to be nothing more than maybe a 2 down, zero tech. When, you go back to that famous clip of him chasing down Creighton Allen from Penn State. He was at 3 or 4 eye on that play. He was something on that one of those alignments. I forget exactly, but it was one of those. And I'm like, yo, if you think Kenneth Grant is just a 2 down 0 for the rest of his career, you ain't watch Kenneth Grant, and you don't see the potential in Kenneth Grant. Evaluating players maybe ain't your thing. What are your thoughts on the defensive tackle class, and what are your thoughts on Kenneth Grant?
Well, yeah, so that's a great question. Defensive tackle class overall is probably the deepest group outside of running back in this class, in my opinion. You can get a starter probably first 4 to 5 rounds, and you can get clean rotational players from there on out, maybe first 4 rounds. It's incredible. We're going to talk about Mason Graham, obviously. You mentioned Kenneth Grant. Derek Harmon out of Oregon, Walter Nolan that you mentioned. You know, you get down into the Alfred Collins type of tier, TJ Sanders, South Carolina.
Mhm.
Like there's a lot of dudes in this class, man. Like
There is.
honestly, you could make a draft guide just off of interior defensive lineman this year, and you would have enough content because it's a massive board this year. Grant, to fight back on the stigma that Grant has, because he's still not a perfect player by any stretch,
No.
but his backfield production is right on par with what Mason Graham's has been the last couple years. And Mason Graham plays for more wide alignments, you know, just from a breakdown perspective than Grant has. Kid's 6'3" plus, he's 230 plus pounds, and he moves like a deer, right? Like he's super athletic, super nimble. I mean, there's a lot of upside there. I think Michigan asked him to kind of just do a little bit of what you said, right? At times of like, hey, like we're just going to hold the point of attack. We're going to two gap a ton, which his body type makes sense for that. But he is a very gifted athlete. I think he needs to play a little bit more aggressively at times against the run. I think he needs to play with better pad level a little bit more consistently. But the talent is very obvious. I mean, and that's the thing about evaluation is it doesn't take a good evaluator to watch Kenneth Grant and be like, hey, that guy moves well for 330. Like, no duh.
Yeah.
Like we could all see that. It's more about like how that projects to the next level and how that fits on the next level. So I think that he's a very easy projection. I mean, I keep mocking him top 20. I think he's going to go at least top 25. You know, he's too athletic and too big to pass on. And there's some defensive tackles that like Walter Nolan's one that have question marks, right? For like off the field concerns and stuff like that. And Kenneth Grant doesn't have a lot of question marks, you know, like his film still needs to take a step forward. He's still not the best version of himself, but he's clean off the field and he's massive and he has talent. He has upside. So I think that's going to make him a top 15, at least a top 20 player in this class when all's said and done.
Yeah, like what's crazy to me, Ryan, is some people have tried to paint him as like a low ceiling, high floor player, and I look at him as a high ceiling player because you've watched him. His snaps have only begun to be ramped up. You know what I mean? Like you've seen the growth in the reps and in the snap count. And what was last year was like the first year he had 500 plus snaps. I think you're just scratching the surface with this. I don't think this is a matter of, okay, there's not much ceiling left to this kid. I don't think that is all because like you said, I think he's got room with good coaching to become a better run stuffer. And I think he can become an even more pocket disruptor from a pass rush standpoint. You know, he cleans that pad level up like you mentioned. I just see really high ceiling on him. Not so, like I don't know. But what are your overall thoughts on this class? And you look at, they're looking to fill we let Deshaun Hand walk, who was actually quietly really good for us last year. What are your like, who are some of the guys you would be looking at that if you were, I know your dad, people might not remember this, but your dad's a Dolphins fan.
Yes.
Who are some of the guys you'd be trying to pair to run with a guy like Zach Sieler? You know how we use them all over the defensive front.
Yeah, I mean, Kenneth Grant's an interesting one. 13 is an interesting conversation just in general. I feel like I just keep mocking offensive linemen to the Dolphins because it's just like they always need offensive linemen, but that's another conversation probably for a different segment on this show. But I think Kenneth Grant makes a lot of sense. I will say that for this class especially, because I'm trying to lock it in with like where the Dolphins are in the draft, because I don't want to say like, oh, Mason Graham would be great. It's like, Mason go top 6, so he's probably not going to get a Mason Graham. But the interior defensive line class, I think just in general, like you mentioned, Alfred Collins. I think Alfred Collins is a late day 2 player, super physical against the run. I don't think he's got a ton of upside as an interior pass rusher, but if you want a guy that's just going to do the dirty work, be physical, maintain the point of attack, take on double teams, Alfred Collins definitely fits that role without question. And I think another guy that I love, that I think is one of the most underrated players in this class, that if we're talking more in like the early day 2 conversation, I love Tyleik Williams from Ohio State. That's one of my favorite players in this class. This young man is 6'2.5", I think like 6'2 3/4", whatever. 329 pounds, and you just can't uproot him in the run game. Like, you can't get him on his heels. He is so dense, so powerful. I think we're sleeping on him a ton because his backfield production, it was okay at Ohio State, but like, he's not going to be an interior penetrator consistently on the NFL level. He's going to be I'm going to kick your butt for 4 quarters and you're not moving me off the line of scrimmage, and the linebackers are going to run free. So Tyleik Williams, I think, is one of my favorite guys in this class. Darius Alexander's interesting. I don't know if I think he can mesh with Sieler because, like you said, Sieler's used in a lot of different ways. So like, it's not necessarily like pigeonholed to one role, but he's really clean. He's athletic. He's 6'3", 305 pounds. He tested pretty well. He is very underrated because he played at Toledo. But I mean, the last time we saw a Toledo player get drafted pretty high, it worked out pretty good for a Super Bowl champion, right? So I think Toledo is doing a tremendous job of developing football players. But Darius Alexander, I think, is super, super interesting as far as like a guy, again, on like a day 2 range that makes some sense.
I already know where this is going to go because I know I'm higher on this guy and I know what it was last year. I'm just waiting for the eye roll. You know who's coming. Your thoughts on Deone Walker?
Oh no! Why did you ask that?
And did you hear what I heard? Was he playing with a broken back last year? Look at that!
Allegedly.
But I mean, you do watch the tape in 2023, and he was moving a little bit better. It was noticeable. Yeah. Anyways,
honestly, this is probably more of an off-topic show conversation, to be honest, because I have some conversations there around Deone Walker. But Deone Walker looks like $1 million. He's 6'7", 330 pounds. He looks like John Henderson, Marcus Stroud. Like, if you remember, like those Jacksonville Jaguar teams back in the day, like he is a massive force. The problem is, plays with horrible pad level.
Yeah.
Doesn't play hard consistently either. The athleticism was zapped a little bit this year, and whether that's the injury, it could be. But even before the injury this year, he was playing with horrible pad level, right? Like, you were buying into the flashes of Deone Walker and hoping that he could get better center of gravity. He could play a little bit lower. If he could do those things, then he still has some upside, but like, this film last year was horrible. Like, it was horrible. I mean, like,
it wasn't good.
I'll put it this way, Reason. He's a top 100 talent for sure in this class, probably like a top 50 talent in this class. But the tape he put out this year was UDFA. Like, it was bad. I mean, maybe it wasn't PFA because he's just so massive, but like, it was horrible, man. Like, we don't have to skate around it. Like, it was really, really, really bad film this year. Could it be a part of the back? Sure. All I'll say, though, and I'm not saying that anybody's lying about it. I'm not saying that. So trust me, I'm not saying that. But that was the first time I'd heard about that, man. And like, I don't know. There's some.
Bro, it gave me hope, bro. It gave me hope.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I forget what was it. I think it was against. I remember it was either Alabama or Georgia in 2023, and I think it was Georgia. And he was causing a ruckus. Like, he was an issue for them. And then you watch 2024 and you're like, where did that guy go? And so I'm banking on the back, baby. I'm banking on the back. Because I'm going to tell you this much. Because this is what I've said. Because I agree with 110% about the pad level. It was in my evaluation.
Right.
But, man, maybe I'm being too much of an optimist. But I saw what Anthony Weaver did with Justin Matabuki. And I got hope with Deone Walker if he were to get his hands on Deone Walker at like 116-ish. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, roll the dice, see if you can get him coached up. The pad level is always going to be an issue because the man's 6'7". Like, it's always going to be an issue. But if you can get him technical for what he has, if you can get him technically and fundamentally in check, I don't want to say sound, in check, then I think you got something, right? You know what I mean? Right. But oh man, I'm betting on the upside on that, bro.
I don't boast about myself very much, but you know who had a late first round grade on Justin Madubuike coming out of Texas A&M?
You did.
I did, yeah.
Justin
Madubuike guy that class. I love Justin Madubuike, man. Love Justin.
But like, is there a bigger boom or bust prospect than Deone Walker in this class?
I don't think anymore, though, because he's not going to get drafted high anymore. I don't think. I think that we're talking about early day 3 football player, probably a dart throw at this point. I don't see a team drafting him top 100, so I don't think he's much of a risk at all. I mean, I'll phrase it this way, Reason. It's like, if I draft Deone Walker at pick 125, right, in the 4th round, and he doesn't end up being good, is anyone going to remember? Like, no one's
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
remember that. They
Yeah.
remember, but they remember Robert Kimdichie, right? That goes like pick 29 or whatever it was, and he was horrible, and he didn't like football, right? Like that's the guys that you technically are boomer bust players. Like he's not going to get drafted high enough to be a boomer bust player. He's going to be a dart throw on day 3 more than likely.
Yeah. Speaking of dart throws. No, we won't go to quarterback yet. Let's stick with the trenches though, because you made a good point. Okay, let's talk about it. Armand Membo, I was like, let's go 13, let's go 13. Then the combine happened. Because New
England's going 4 with him probably. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. You've been around. You know how I feel about Austin Jackson as the player.
Yeah.
He hasn't been able to stay healthy. Okay, so my idea was stick Membo at right guard. When that guy goes down, kick Membo to right tackle, and Austin ain't never getting his job back and move off of him in 2026. But they restructured him, so he's got like a $15 million cap hit in 2026. Let's swallow that one for a second with Austin Jackson. So, anyways, what are your thoughts? Because obviously there's rumblings. Now, I think there's a better chance, and we'll talk about him in a bit here, of Will Johnson falling to 13 than a Will Campbell or Armand Membo. But what are your thoughts on maybe Armand Membo and Will Campbell? Will they get out of the top 10? And where do you stand on Will Campbell as playing guard in year 1 if they want to stick with Patrick Paul to see if he can make it happen in year 1?
Yeah. I think Membo is he's a moot point at this point. I've heard a lot about New England at 4, and I think that is legitimately probably going to happen. If not, I think that a team like the Jets at 7 would be another interesting one. The Raiders at 6 could even be in play, obviously, to potentially play right tackle. So I think that he's going to be off the board at that point. He's a very interesting player, obviously, 6'4", 330 pounds, and ran like 4.91 or whatever the heck it was. Like he's a very interesting athlete. There's no doubt. He could definitely play guard too if he somehow did get to Miami. If Miami wanted to play him at guard like they could, I think it's much more likely that Will Campbell gets there. Now, the team that I think could halt that is the San Francisco 49ers. I think have pick 11, right? And that's a Will Campbell destination if I've ever seen one. They need a right tackle. They need a guard. He could play either more than likely, depending upon the scheme. So I think at 11 to San Francisco is probably the floor for Will Campbell more than likely. But you never know. Stuff happens, right? So he definitely is more likely than compared to Membo as far as like being available there. And I think that there's going to be a lot of debate about Will Campbell tackle, Will Campbell guard, and different people have different perspectives on it. Either way, he's got a floor that you cannot look past because he is a player that I think gives you the opportunity to get your best 5 on the field at all times. Because if you do want to stick with Austin Jackson, you do want to stick with player X, Y, or Z, who cares? He could play multiple spots on the offensive line and play it pretty well, in my opinion, right? So doesn't have great length. 33-inch arms is what he measured in at the pro day, but he's a good athlete, obviously, and he's very technically refined. One of the more technically refined players we've seen come out the last couple of years at offensive tackle. So, yes, I think he could play guard. I think he's the more likely of the two to eventually be there at 13, although I think it's unlikely that either end up being there at 13.
If you were the Dolphins, would you touch a guy like Calvin Banks at 13?
I'd rather trade back a little bit and entertain Banks. I don't dislike Banks. 13 just in a vacuum is a little bit high for me. Like
I agree.
I think he's a very passable football player. Like if he was picked somewhere between 20 and 32, I wouldn't really want to say anything, but like high teens is like just a little bit rich. I mean, if I was Miami, maybe trade him back and then trying to still get it. Calvin Banks might be a more interesting conversation, but he can also bring the same thing that I just said though about Campbell as far as he could play tackle in the NFL level, probably more of a right tackle than a left tackle, but he can also play guard for sure. I mean, the best part of Calvin Banks' game is power, like physicality. Like he's a very strong dude overall, and he's got kind of that blocky frame. So he's a guy that I would consider, but I would rather trade back a few spots, maybe to pick 20 or so, like just in a vacuum, and to draft a guy like a Calvin Banks. 13 is just a little bit rich, in my opinion.
Tyler Booker. Let people know he ain't a scheme fit for our outside zone, please.
He's not a scheme fit for an outside zone. If you're more of an inside zone team, I think that he can fit in that spot because he ran that a lot at Alabama. If you're a gap power team, he could absolutely play there. But I really like Tyler Booker a lot. But I agree, like if you're drafting him and running outside zone 70% of the time, like you're misusing him. Like that's not necessarily his game. But if you're an inside zone power scheme team, I think Tyler Booker is a plus starter on the NFL level to the right scheme.
Before we get, because I got a couple guys I want to talk about in the interior here, especially around 48. What are your thoughts on Josh Simmons?
I think Josh Simmons is the best tackle in this class. It's just he's injured, right? Like he's compromised at this point. He's got the patella tendon injury that he's coming back for. It's a little bit of a tricky injury for an offensive lineman. There's also some things that have been coming out lately. I think it was McGinn put it out there as far as like there's some questions of like just if his competitiveness and work ethic and all that type of stuff. So I mean,
Yeah.
but I honestly haven't heard it from enough people that like it gives me a red flag personally, but maybe he knows something that I don't know. I mean, it's possible, but that kid is long. He's super athletic. His film I actually watched him at San Diego State 2 years ago, and he was toolsy at San Diego State. Year 2 at Ohio State, it was okay. It was solid, right? Like you could tell that he was transitioning from going from G5 to Power 4 football. Like it was a big transition for him. But then this past year, he was stellar, man. Like his first half of the season before we got hurt against Oregon was so good. Like it really was. And he is the cleanest prospect in this class, as long as he's healthy, full health in the conversation, of playing left tackle in the NFL level. Like he's the guy that I say, like, you don't have to move him to spot. Because like Membu, who we talked about, he's a right tackle more than likely. I mean, like maybe he could play left tackle, but like we have no idea. We've never seen him in a left-handed stance. We've never seen him do it. Will Campbell, is he a guard? Is he a tackle? Questions, right? Kelvin Banks, guard, tackle, questions. Jonas Evanea, guard, tackle, questions. But for a guy like a Josh Simmons, there's no reason to move him from left tackle. Like there's zero reason. I mean, he could play right tackle if you needed him to, but like my point being is that he is one of the small list of guys this year that are blindside protectors in the NFL as long as they're healthy. So I think that he would have ended up being a top 10 pick in this class if he was healthy. But with him not being healthy, I think he's more of a back end of round 1 type of pick. But I think he might be a luxury for a really good team because long term,
He's going to the Chiefs.
The best tackle. Yeah, probably.
He's going to go to the Chiefs. Watch.
Like Lions for some reason. Like sure, yeah. Go ahead.
So at 48, I think that's a prime spot to target a guard. A name you mentioned, a guy I'm super high on, Jonas Evanea. He says he wants to play guard at the next level. Obviously, he has some guard tape from his time early on at Arizona as well, before he's kicked out to tackle. You know, Ryan, a guy who I was really impressed with, and Donovan Jackson's tape against Derek Harmon in 2023, eh? Like he was moving him out of the run lanes. He was turning them, having no issue. And Derek Harmon's a good player.
Yeah.
I think Donovan Jackson, and then go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say Derek Harmon in 2023 wasn't quite real Derek Harmon yet, though.
No,
but yes, just some context. Yeah, absolutely.
But they still dubs, bro. They're still dubs. And then Donovan Jackson was actually really solid in the college football playoffs when he got kicked out to tackle as well, I thought. What do you think about a Donovan Jackson or Jonas Evanea at 48? Will they even be there at 48? Then you got guys that come in, you know, like start talking about the Tate Ratledges start coming into the conversation. Gray Zabel's probably gone by 48 because it seems like the NFL is quite high on him. You know, you got other guys like obviously Marcus Mbao, Miles Frazier, Luke Kander, Jackson Slater, Clay Webb. What are your thoughts on this guard class? And what are your thoughts specifically at 48 when it comes? Do you think that would be a good part of the Dolphins strategy to target an interior guy at 48? Because that's where it seems like a cluster of good players might be.
There's gonna be options on the table for sure. I don't think Gray Zabel's gonna be there. I don't think Donovan Jackson will be there either, just because of the flexibility that he showed now. Because I think there are some teams that will view him as a tackle. Some will still view him at guard. I mean, but either way, he's got versatility to him. So I think that'll go pretty early. Jonas Evanea is like one of my. Someone was asking in the chat earlier of like, do I have like a my guy list or like a draft crush list or whatever? Like, Jonas Evanea is a draft crush guy for me, because he's one of the youngest players in this class. He is just built so well. He's played left tackle at Arizona. He's played right tackle. He's played guard. He's played all over the place. And I honestly think that's hurt him a little bit, right? Like,
Yeah.
I want to see Jonas Evaneo when he's just playing one spots for
Yeah,
a full
locked
season,
in.
for a full
Yeah.
couple season. Like, that's what he is ultimately. He's really athletic. He's got developing power. He's got a power profile, but I think he needs to learn how to use it a little bit more properly because he's a third-year kid that declared early. I think we need to remember that, right? Like, he's still a young cat, but he's a starter in my opinion on the NFL level. I actually think he can play tackle, but obviously he has the intent to play guard, so
Yeah.
that's fine. I think he has high upside as a guard potentially. So 7A is very interesting.
Does he make
Marcus
it to 48?
Val, yeah.
Does he make it to 48?
He's more likely. I think he will be. Yeah, I think he'll be there at 48. I would personally draft him even a little bit higher. Like, I'd be okay with early second round on Joe Savanea, but I do think that I wouldn't say the NFL's mixed on him. I just think that, I think 48's an appropriate range, probably more than likely for what he is today. You're drafting him though because based upon what he could be like year 2, year 3. That's the exciting part of Joe Savanea.
Yeah.
I don't even think you're drafting him necessarily to be the full-time starter year 1. I think he's a guy that needs to continue to develop, but I think year 2, year 3, you could get a butt kicker. Like, that's what I think of Savanea, right? Marcus Bow, who is the Purdue kid, it's really funky because it's MBOW, but it's Bow. It's very strange. He's played right tackle for Purdue, but he also played guard a little bit in his career as well. Mm-hmm. He's extremely interesting. He's one of the better athletes in this class on the offensive line, just in general. Moves really well. He's got borderline tackle length. So, like, there are some people I think that do view him as a tackle, but I think he's a guard long-term, and I think he's got starter upside for sure. Just really clean movements. He's a perfect fit for Miami, honestly, because his power is pretty good, but he's a mover. Like, his game is predicated on lateral mobility, working up to the second level. Like, he would be a perfect outside zone system guy, I think.
What do you think about some of the later guys? Like, what do you think about, Clay Webb, Jackson Slater, Luke Kandra? What do you think about those guys?
Yeah, I'm not. Kandra's interesting. He's kind of a phone booth guy. He's going to beat you up without question. I'm not really a big Clay fan. I mean, he's okay. I'm just not like, just isn't my cup of tea. Jackson Slater, we actually had on the pod, or actually, we interviewed him, but we're having him on the podcast to drop sometime soon at A to Z Sports Film Room. I think he's very underrated in this class, man. Like, very underrated. He tested pretty well, both at the Combine and Pro Day. He played a lot of football at Sac State. There's nothing flashy about him, but he just kind of checks a lot of boxes. And I think as like a mid-day 3 type of pick, Jackson Slater is going to come in and back up a couple different spots. I know he's practiced some center reps as well. So, like, he's played guard in his career, but I think he can back up all 3 interior positions, and he's super interesting. I'll give you a guy that I think is really interesting for Miami, though, on day 3 that people don't talk about a lot. Joshua Gray from Oregon State's an interesting dude in this class because he played tackle the majority of his Oregon State career. But like, when you watch
I thought they were shifting him to center. No?
So he played tackle the majority of his Oregon State career. This past year, they moved him to left guard. So he was playing guard this past year.
Yeah.
I think, and everybody knew when he was playing tackle, he isn't a tackle. Like, he just doesn't have tackle length. Like, he's just not a tackle. But the movement skills are clean, man. He moves well. He played guard this year. I think he could play center. He could at least back up all 3 spots. And I wouldn't be shocked. Here's a bold take, I guess. I wouldn't be shocked if he's a starter, like, year 4 into his year 3 into his career. Like, I think Joshua Gray is a guy that some team's going to draft in like the 5th or 6th round and get an eventual, at least solid starter in the NFL. That's kind of what I think about him.
That's an interesting name. I like it. That's I put him on my center list because that's where I feel like he's being projected right now by the NFL. But I like him. He's a good player. He is a good player. Have you had a chance to? Well, obviously you've had a chance. What are your thoughts on? Where do you have Wyatt Millam and Emory Jones listed as? Do you have them kicking inside?
I think that Emory Jones would be best served kicking inside for sure. I thought he was a guard even last year when some people kind of had him a little bit of hype when he was a sophomore. But I think the best parts, it's not like a lack of length conversation because Emory Jones actually has pretty good length. He has pretty decent foot quickness. Like, I think he could last just from a structural perspective. But I think some guy, reason we focus way too much about measurables of like kicking guys inside or keeping them outside. I want to watch what their play style is and what their temperament is, right? Like that's how guys fit at different spots better, in my opinion. And he is a guard for me. He's physical. He's a plus run blocker. He's a good enough athlete to play out in space in different situations. So Emory Jones is a guard, I think, but he can play tackle. Millam is interesting because there's nothing about him that says tackle really, right? Like he has short arms. He's super physical. He's down and dirty in the run game, but he just doesn't give up many pressures, right? Like you're just kind of like, maybe it translates to tackle. I don't know, but I graded him inside a guard. I think that he is a starting guard in the NFL, and I think he's going to be one of the better run blockers that a team's going to have. Like he's physical, man, super physical. He's got a lot of reps at tackle. He doesn't have any at guard, so like, you're going to have to see how that translates. But like good enough movement skills inside and a really physical dude. I like Wyatt Millam a ton.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about tight end, because the Miami Dolphins, they got some serious production from Jonnu Smith. He had a career year with Tua Tagovailoa last year. There was a South Florida reporter I had a podcast with in 2023, and I kept telling him every time we did our show, tight end is the next evolution. Tight end's the next step. That's where we need to go. That's why I was huge on Brock Bowers in that draft in this offense. But this year, an early favorite that I tried to dim the light on a little bit with some Dolphin fans on Twitter at 13 was Tyler Warren. Now, I was trying to tell Dolphin fans then, because they were just they heard a couple people in the community talk about him and they were just so locked in. And I was trying to tell them, hey, he's not even the consensus number one throughout NFL circles. And this was before the combine happened, and people didn't want to believe me. And I was trying to tell them, hey, Colston Loveland exists, eh? Like, I don't know what you guys think here, but hey, you could have Warren number one, but Colston Loveland exists, and there are teams that are going to have Colston Loveland ranked higher than Tyler Warren. That's just where it is, especially if you're living off Brock bias, if you're living off that Brock Bowers bias. What are your thoughts on the Loveland and Warren debate? And then I want to go a little bit deeper into tight end with you.
I do have Warren as my tight end one, but if we're doing tier breaks, I do think that Warren and Loveland are in the same tier, right? Like they're not, it's not like this crazy separation because they're just so different, right? Like Warren he played at about 260. He's like your dense physical yak dude who can win above the rim, can play a little bit more in line. Loveland is more of route runner, right? Like he's going to play a lot of big slot. He's going to play detached a little bit more. He's a little bit Warren's more explosive while Loveland's smooth, right? Like he's a smooth mover. I think his straight line speed's good, but like the thing that is the biggest sell about Loveland is whether a nickel's covering him, whether a safety's covering, whether a linebacker's covering, he can separate at a very high level because he's just such a easy route runner, man. Gets in and out of his breaks, doesn't telegraph things. Like he's one of those high end types of dudes as far as like that role on the NFL level. For comparison's sake, and again, I'm not saying these guys are these players because I'm talking about style, right? Like style, how they play. Warren is more Rob Gronkowski, while Loveland is more Travis Kelce, right? Like Travis Kelce's a route runner separator. That's how he wins, and he wins after the catch a little bit at times as well. That's the difference. I value Warren because I think that Warren as number one, because I think Warren can do a little bit more in some areas than what Loveland can do. I think that Warren is a little bit more explosive. I think he's better after the catch. I think he's better at the catch point. I think he's a little bit better of a blocker in line. But I think Loveland is a better route runner. And he's a little bit more smooth. I think he's a little bit more polished. Like those things are kind of what you're really looking forward to. But I think both are slam dunk first round picks. And at this point, I would be shocked if both of them aren't gone by pick. What did the Chargers pick? 22. So like I'd be shocked if either of them were. I think Warren probably might go top 10 possibly, but I would be shocked if Loveland got past 22 in this spot.
Okay, so are you worried about Warren at the next level and his ability to separate?
Not as much, because I think that he separates in other areas that are more interesting. Like I think that when we hear separation, I think people's minds initially just go to route running, and I get it. That's a form of separation, but there's other ways to separate. You in the air, ability to elevate and win at the catch point, that's a form of separation. That is, right? As a athlete, that's a form of separation. And I think Warren is good enough in those two areas, even if he's not a great route runner or never will be a great route runner, he can extend above the rim and separate that way. And I think he can separate with enough foot speed and quickness to be a guy that can outrun some linebackers and safeties on the NFL level as well and separate in that department. So not worried about that instance. If you're drafting him to be a route runner, then you're probably not going to get your return. But if you're drafting him to be a guy that could be a mismatch weapon against linebackers and safeties, that's more Tyler Warren's game.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What would you say to someone that says, well, then why couldn't he flat out beat out a guy like Theo Johnson?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to someone like that?
I mean, whether it's right or wrong, coaches tend to love experience, right? And Theo Johnson was the known commodity in that room. And we also need to remember Tyler Warren was a high school tight ends, right? So like developmental track, he needed to learn how to play the tight end position. I mean, it's the same thing with like, AJ Barner played a lot for Michigan the year before with Loveland as well. It's like, why can't Loveland block? It's like, well, he didn't have to block because AJ Barner was on the team, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that he can't do it. It's just a little factoid of like how the roster is constructed. So I mean, we just can't ignore that he had 100-something catches and over 1,200 yards this year. You know what I mean? Like it's just nutty production. So I just think it was the developmental track more than likely for Tyler Warren to being a high school quarterback that needed development to a tight end. Okay, so I actually haven't been asked that one. That's a really good question. Really good question.
So let's talk about a few other guys in this class. Okay. Obviously, Terrence Ferguson tested really well. Okay. Mm-hmm. A guy I think I'm higher on than a lot of others. I really love Gunnar Helm's game. Like obviously we found out he ran that 40 time, didn't live up to what we wanted to. And then we find out it's because his ankle was the size of a watermelon because of that false start. And then he got that competitive toughness. He went through the drills. But anyways, another player I want to talk about, Mason Taylor. What do you think about Mason Taylor from? Right? But like not so much about Jason, but like, do you see him the way I see him? That man, if this guy gets way cleaner and better in line, the upside's kind of crazy with a guy like Mason Taylor. Because I don't even think he was properly. Was he properly utilized in LSU?
He's interesting because he's kind of Loveland-ish as far as like he's really cleaning out of breaks. He can run routes pretty well, and he's good above the rim too. I think his run blocking is definitely a work in progress. Like that is not something I think year one Mason Taylor's going to be good at, but I think that he's a guy that could be a movement piece for an offense, could play multiple spots, and has pass catching upside for sure. So he's a very easy top 100 player without question. I think he could go top 64. Like he could be a top 2 round guy ultimately in the end, but I like you mentioned Gunnar Helm, man, because Gunnar Helm is a very underrated player now in this class. I mean, you can get him in mock drafts in like 4th and 5th round, and
crazy.
I mean, he just does everything pretty well. Like he's a pretty good blocker. He's got soft, dependable hands. He's pretty good after the catch. Decent. I mean, he plays like a good athlete. I know that his testing wasn't great, but due to the
he hurdles, bro.
Yeah. Oh no, he hurdles a lot of people. He's very good at hurdling too. So yeah, he's a late breakout guy, obviously. But I mean, again, he had 60 catches for over 700 yards this past year. So very productive his final year. So he's one of the more well-rounded tight ends in this class. Maybe not as flashy as some others, but efficient.
See, this is why I've been telling him, why take a guy like Tyler Warren at 13? Because I'm going to tell you, you got to be Brock Bowers for me to take you at tight end in top 15, bro. You got to be generational. I know that gold jacket is coming, and you know how big of a Brock Bowers fan I was last year. I got to know that gold jacket's coming if you're tight end, because you know I'm a draft value guy. Why would I take that at 13 when I can turn around in the 4th and I can get, and that's what I've been saying, I can get Gunnar Helm, do exactly what you're saying. He does everything really well. He's like Tyler Warren, like super light. You know what I mean? I just go get him in the 4th. I don't have to pay that much for him in terms of a draft capital. What are your thoughts on Harold Fannin Jr.? I know another day 3 guy Dolphin fans really like is Jackson Hawes because of his inline ability.
Yeah.
That's it. A guy I'm really high on, brother. Now, I know injury set him back, Ryan, but as the young kids say, walk with me. All right. Okay. Listen, I think if this guy stays healthy, man, I used to watch the Laporta film and Luke Lachey, bro. I know injuries set him back, man. But the trajectory before the injury started setting in, he was a good blocker. He was a good, man, I think he's another sneaky. You can get him in like the day 3 and he could turn into something a little bit. What are your thoughts on the later tight end guys?
Well, the good thing about Luke Lachey is if his football career doesn't turn out, he can join NSYNC or the Backstreet Boys or something, right? Like he's got a great name there. Sorry, that was a really lame joke. I'm a dad. Please don't even listen to me for a second. Jackson Hawes, I mean, is like the easiest evaluation in this class. He's going to be a tight end 2 or 3 in the NFL just based upon his blocking. Like he's just going to, it's just what he does, you know, like he's a really good blocker. If you want a receiver, then you're not drafting Jackson Hawes. He's a lot like, Ko Kieft that came out of Minnesota a couple years ago. That's on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is like their tight end 2 blocker. It's just like, he's going to play that role and he's going to do it well, but there's not a ton of like all around upside with a guy like Jackson Hawes. He just kind of is what he is, but like what he is good. Like he's good at what he does ultimately, which is great. Harold Fannin, not a fan, man. I'm not. I wanted to so bad. Like I wanted to so bad. I don't even know where to start. So he had great production this past year, over 1,500 yards, and he did it against some good competition too. Like he had a good game against Penn State, he had a good game against Texas A&M. It was cool, but as far as like being translatable, he's a smaller tight end who I think is a pretty average athlete for the tight end position. Like I don't think he's a great athlete. I think he's functional, but doesn't block well. He has effort as a blocker, but he's not going to be a good blocker. Like he just doesn't have the tools necessary to be a plus inline blocker on the NFL level. And I just don't know what the role is so my question is, in like the modern game of the NFL, if I wanted a big slot on my offense, why wouldn't I just draft Jaden Higgins instead of drafting this guy, right? Like I don't know. Like I think I'd rather just put a real wide receiver out there as a big slot than putting this out there a wide receiver as a big slot. Like I'm just not in on Harold Fannin. Like similar type of player, although a much bigger player is Elijah Arroyo out of Miami. Like I'd much rather just draft Elijah Arroyo in the top 100 than drafting a Harold Fannin in this class. Like that would just be much more stylistically what I would prefer to do. But yeah, so I'm not a huge fan of Harold Fannin. I know that came off super negative, but yeah.
I was gonna actually ask you about Elijah Arroyo. Hurricane fans, they really like him. What are your thoughts on him? And actually, another, Dolphin tie. Your thoughts on Oronde Gadsden?
Oronde Gadsden's super interesting because he's a guy that has played the majority of like wide receiver in his career, and he's played the majority of big slot in his career at Syracuse. This past year, they used him a little bit more, still not attached, but like as a wing a little bit more and some like 2 tight end sets, like that type of thing. Again, you have no idea if he can block. You have zero idea. Like he can block on the perimeter on screens and stuff. Like, that, but can he put his hand in the dirt and be a guy that could block in line? No idea, but he's a good athlete. Catches the ball clean, has a pretty big frame. There's a lot to like about him. He's a developmental guy on day 3 that I think has some upside for sure. Elijah Arroyo, I love Elijah Arroyo. He's tight end 3 in this class, in my opinion. I love Elijah Arroyo. Wow. Movement skills, man. Movement skills, after catch ability. He has effort in line. You're not blocking him. You're not drafting him to block, but at least he'll give you something. Like he'll try his hardest, and he's 250 something pounds. So I think that he has some upside as far as like getting better in that realm. But as a guy in like your system specifically, in like a wide zone system, like off of action, cross action, and getting him out into space a little bit off of slides and bootlegs and stuff, like he's impressive, man. He's a really nice athlete and really nice after the catch guy. So I think in like that West Coast ish, like McVay, Shanahan system, like he's a pretty fun fit. Pretty fun.
Are you a big fan of Terrence Ferguson?
He's solid. I wouldn't say big fan. Like I think he's a solid player though. I mean, he tested well. Obviously, he ran the fastest 40 at the combine, which was the slowest times I've seen at tight ends though. Like it was horrible to watch.
It wasn't good.
It almost put me to sleep. It was so bad. But he is a pretty decent athlete. He's played all over the place. They play him in line at times. They play detached from the line of scrimmage. He does everything just kind of pretty well, but nothing great. Like he's kind of that guy that just kind of checks a lot of boxes, but doesn't necessarily do anything really well. So I think he's a borderline, like top. I think he could sneak top 100, but like he's probably a top 125 player that he'll be a good number 2, if nothing else. Like, I think he'll be a good number 2 and a guy that can keep a defense honest in some 12 personnel sets.
Who's your wide receiver 1?
Luther Burden. I'm still a Burden fan. I am.
This guy.
Oh no, who's your wide receiver 1? Tet?
Tet.
Tet guy?
You knew because remember I was
yeah.
a Drake guy. Remember I was a London guy. You knew I'd be a
I
Tet
like Drake
guy.
London
You
a
know.
lot. Drake London was. I love Drake London in that class. I made some money on Drake London because I think his over under was like 11.5, and I picked the under for him to get drafted because I knew he was going to go pretty early. But I think Luther Burden was a lot better in 2024 than people give him credit for. I think there was a lot around him that wasn't very good that year, and he was dealing with the injury a little bit.
Quarterback play.
Yeah. Quarterback play was bad. The offensive line wasn't great outside of Membu. Like it was pretty ugly. But he's a dynamic player after the catch, a lot more physical at the catch point than you would think for a guy his size. He reminds me a lot of Golden Tate. So like do that with what you will. I think he's a Golden Tate type of player. High volume after catch guy, physical after the catch. I mean, his yards after catch this past 2 years, I think is like he averaged like 7.6 yards after catch per reception or something like that. Like it was pretty nutty. It was a nutty number. I think the highest in the class. So if that's the style you're looking for, I think it's great. I'm a little bit lower on Tet. I struggle with him a little bit. I don't think he's a great athlete. I think he's going to struggle separating with speed. I think he's going to struggle separating with consistent route running. He's got flashes of it, but I don't think it's super consistent. I think he's great at the catch point. I think he's got great hands, big frame. Like there's a lot to like. And when I say I'm not a big Tet guy, I'm okay with Tet in the first rounds. Like I am okay with Tet in the right situation in the first round. I'm just not top 10 overall pick Tetero McMillan guy. Like that's just not my flavor this year.
I just, you know what? I look at him and Ibuka in the first round as if you're going to move off Tyreek and you want to pair someone with Waddle. I look at either one of those guys would be a fit from a skill set standpoint. Other guys I'm pretty high on in this class. You mentioned them earlier. I'm really high on Jaden Higgins. I'm really high on Savion Williams. I like Trey Harris. I think Kyle Williams is starting to get the love he deserves, but even I feel like I have him too low. What do you think of Ao Manor from Stanford?
I think he's the weirdest receiver in the class, and weird isn't necessarily a negative per se. So you look at him and you say that kid's a bigger frame guy. He's like 6'2", 210. He's pretty stocky build, strong frame, all that type of stuff. And you kind of have an assumption in your mind, reason of like, this is what he's going to be. He's going to kind of be a true X. He's going to be physical. He's going to win at the catch point. And he's not great at the catch point, really. Like he's more route runner, right? Like he's a good route runner. He's nuanced. He's kind of, he's just kind of, he plays a little bit more of a small man game in a big man body. So he's like, just kind of weird. Like he's a little bit weird. Again, not bad necessarily. It's just like, I think he's an acquired taste, in my opinion, right? Like he has the tools to be better at the line of scrimmage. Well, he's pretty good at the line of scrimmage, but like working through contact, physical at the catch point, I think he could be better there. But you're drafting him to be a route runner. Like I actually kind of think that he'd be pretty fun big slot in the NFL because I think he's a really good route runner. He's got a bigger frame, can work through contact in that regard. Maybe not at the catch point, but so he's an interesting player. A lot of teams like him, but there's a lot of like unique players in this class. Like I'm a big Jalen Noel fan out of Iowa State. Like that's one of my guys this year, I guess. He's 5'10", he's 196 pounds. But again, you have like an assumption about him. You'd be like, that guy's probably a route runner. He's probably explosive, like that type of stuff. But then you see his game and you're like, he can win at the catch point a little bit, man. Like he's pretty physical. Then he runs 4.39 at the combine. Then he does a 40+ inch vert. Like I think Jalen Noel is one of the best kept secrets in this class. I think it's in the Jalen's this year too, because I like Jalen Royals out of Utah State a lot too. Very different player, but both intriguing day 2 options for a team.
Man, some interesting names there. Now, finally here, cornerback. The Dolphins lost Kendall Fuller. Obviously, he had 2 concussions last year. They don't, Kohu's mainly in the slot. Cam Smith hasn't really turned into anything yet. A guy who I've been dreaming about since October, falling to us at 13, and I didn't think it was a realistic possibility, who I have a top 5 grade in this class, in this whole draft on, is Will Johnson. And that seems like it might happen. what would be your strategy if you were the Dolphins at 13? Would you be trying to make that move for Will Johnson? Because you mentioned the San Francisco 49ers earlier with Will Campbell. They lost Javarius Ward. They're another team that might be looking at a guy like Will Johnson too. What are your thoughts on Will Johnson at 13? Will he make it there? And if you were the Dolphins, would you run to the podium?
If I was a betting man, I would say he will be there. Yes. And I don't think that it's the right evaluation. I think that Will Johnson is also a top 10 player in this class, but I think there's some overthink on him a little bit. I mean, like, he was injured this year. The film wasn't amazing. It wasn't as good as it was in 2023, but like, there's context to why the film wasn't. Yeah, it was still good. Absolutely. Yeah. But, he wasn't available. He was a little bit banged up. Like, the Fresno State game this year was like not great. Like it's a couple things to just kind of poke holes into, but I think he's just a really good player, man. So smart, really good hit fluidity. I don't think his long speed's great, but like, I also just don't really care. Like, he's just a really good player. So fascinating conversation. I was just talking with a buddy about this, is who goes off the board first, Will Johnson or Jahdae Barron out of Texas? And I kind of think it's going to be Barron. So Will Johnson might be there at 13. Here's the question is, who does Miami like more, if it's Will Johnson or Jahdae Barron at 13, if they want to take a corner, right? Because they might have a couple options that are on the board, which is interesting. But if you draft Will Johnson at 13, that's a very good pick. You got a top 10 player in the class at 13, in my opinion.
Do you realize we're talking about him not having a good game, in which he had that massive pick six where he totally read that screen. That read on that screen was insane, bro. The instincts are ridiculous. And you know what? I posted the clip. I get it. We didn't see him test the 40 time. But bro, that play he made where he came across the field, who was it against? He made you'll remember who it was against, where he was on the right side boundary. The ball went to the left side up the sideline, and he came across the field and made the stop. Do you remember what I'm talking about? It was against, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm bringing it up. It was against Texas earlier in the year. It was against Texas. Yeah. You see him IDing that the ball is going to the left side, the ball's going to the other side, and it was the end around. It was the fake toss end around, where they end around, and he came from the other side and he made this. It was ridiculous, bro. He had no business making that play. You know what I mean? Like, I just, man, I don't know, man. Will Johnson is, bro, I'm going to tell you this. People might look back on this draft, and if he stays healthy, he could be Patrick Surtain levels. Like, I don't think people realize how good this kid could be, bro.
Interesting comparison, because they're both pretty similar size. Their play style is very similar as well, right? Like, they're technicians with really great lateral and hip mobility. Like, they're really good opening and running. I know Surtain ended up running like 4.39 at his pro day, but like I think that was a little bit of a juiced 40 time, to be honest. Like, I don't think that he had great long speed coming out of Alabama. It was good. Like, it was obviously good, but yeah, I think that he's one of those guys that's so high floor, and we've been talking about him for so long that people have kind of underrated him in this class a little bit, similar to what we did with Surtain that year.
It's absolutely nuts, bro. What are your thoughts on some of the other guys quickly here? Like, I'm a big fan of Trey Amos. I thought Siobhan Revel's 2023 film was very, very good. Azariah Thomas, I think, is really good. I know a guy that you're gonna like, that Greer probably likes, is Benjamin Morrison, if he can stay healthy here. Maxwell Harrison tested crazy. Darian Porter tested crazy. What are your thoughts on the rest of this corner class?
Sure. Yeah, Revel is one of my favorite players in this class, and I think he's become very underrated, obviously, because he missed the majority of the year with the injury this past year, and just kind of out of sight, out of mind. He's also a slightly older prospect. He's going to turn 24 during his rookie year, coming from G5 school. So there's a lot of people that have kind of stopped talking about him, but that kid's a freak, man. I compared him to Antonio Cromartie early on in this process. Like, I think if he would have been able to test, and it's unfortunately he wasn't, he was going to run like 4.35. He was going to do like 42 inches on the vert. He was going to do like 11 foot on the broad. Like, it was going to be some stupid numbers. So he's a height, weight, speed freak, and he can turn and run with just about anybody. So he's going to be healthy here. I think he actually is doing some private workouts within the next couple weeks here. So he's almost fully back from the lower leg injuries. So Revel's a really good one. Azariah Thomas, if you're a team that wants to run press man, there might not be a better press man corner in this class. Just at the line of scrimmage, jamming, not letting guys get off clean. Like, he is very good there. Doesn't have the long speed, but like, his Really fluid mover, really strong, really just good press man corner. If I could go down the board, a guy that I like a lot more than some people, I guess, is Kobe Bryant out of Kansas. Like that's one of my guys, I guess, in this year's class. You might be able to get him in the 4th round, and I think that you're getting a starter in the 4th round potentially. Like he's not big. He's 5'11" and some change. He weighed in at 180 pounds at the combine, bulked up a little bit. So he's not a big guy by any stretch, but his length is good for his size. He's got 31+ inch arms. But that kid's a dog, man. Like, what does being a dog mean? It means playing like Kobe Bryant's. Like, he's just like,
yeah, he's
fits
good
against the run, physical at the line of scrimmage, really smart player, has, I think, like 12 or 14 interceptions in his career as well. So he's taking the football away. Like, I really like Kobe Bryant a lot out of Kansas. If you can get him in like the early day 3 conversation, or even the late day 2 conversation, I think it's a good pick. And then Jacob Parrish is the last guy I'll kind of shout out from Kansas State. He is a smaller corner again, might have to play a lot of nickel in the NFL level, but that kid can run. He's aggressive and he's super fluid. So if you just want a cover man that can play a little bit inside and out, I think Jacob Parrish from Kansas State's very, very interesting.
So should I take it as a slight that you didn't talk about Trey Amos?
I'm not a Trey Amos guy, so yeah, I didn't want to bad about the guy.
Actually, I do want to ask you something quick before we get out of here. Yeah. Are you a Matthew Golden guy?
To what degree is my question?
I don't see that speed on film, bro.
No, he's not. You know my comp for him? My comp for him was Doug Baldwin, and Doug Baldwin ran like 4.47. Okay, he's solid. Like that's my comp, right? Like he's actually a little bit bigger than Golden. I think Baldwin was like 5'10 and a half and like 190 something pounds. Golden's like 5'11 and some change and 190 something pounds. No, he's not a 4.28 guy on film. Like he's just not that guy. But what he is consistent route runner. He's pretty good at finding space, or actually really good at finding space. He's efficient, and he actually plucks the ball really well at the highest point. Like he's really dependable in that regard. So if you want a high-end number 2 in the NFL level, I think that's Matthew Golden. Should he go in the top 20 picks? I don't think so. Like I don't think he's a top 20 overall player in this class, but he's good though. He's a good player in my opinion. But yes, I agree with you. He is not 4.2. I thought he was going to run 4.47. That's what I thought he was going to run. 4.48, like somewhere in that ballpark. When he ran 4.28, I was actually shocked that he ran 4.28. Was shocked.
Hey, man, I appreciate you coming through and having this great conversation. You plug your stuff. Tell everyone where they can find you on Twitter and the socials and everything you got going on, as this is like the busiest time of the year for you.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you for having me on as always, my friends. At Rise and Draft on Twitter. If you want to go over there, A to Z Sports is where you will find all the NFL draft content. I actually am supposed to be finishing up a 1st-round mock draft that hopefully will come out sometime today. We'll see what the schedule looks like. But scouting reports, mock drafts, I'll have some rumor mill stuff. If you want some video NFL draft analysis, A to Z Sports Film Room, if you just search that in your YouTube bar, you can follow me there. And appreciate you again, man.
Hey, man, always a blast. Always a blast. Can't wait to do it. And maybe this year we'll have you on after the draft to talk about the prospects. We got 10 picks. So I'm going to want to, I'm going to want to, pick your brain, especially about 13, 48, and 98. And I don't know about you, Ryan, but this draft, I think between 48 and 98, I don't think this team can afford to wait 50 picks, because that's where this draft gets really good in that area.
Yes. Yeah, like 35 to 70 is kind of the bread and butter of this class. So I agree with you.
Yeah. So guys, smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, and check me out on Doug Lee tonight at 7:00. And I will be back tomorrow to drop the cornerback big board. Fins up all day, every day. And we'll see y'all in the next one. Take it easy and have a good rest of your Friday, everyone.